Good morning. We will begin Assembly Business Professions Consumer Protection Committee as a subcommittee. Mr. Hagman, you are first. We are going to take up file item 10 AB 2438. Your other bill is a proposed consent item. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good morning, members. Yes, it's still morning. I'll make this kind of short, but I'm happy to answer any questions on 2438. Basically, been working from a local perspective before I came here to Assembly. We have, the state of California owns quite a bit of property in Chino area, and we're able to put in the budget last year the ability for the state to do long-term leases, 60 to 100-year leases on their land. The advantage of a department to do that is they could get revenues from that land, yet the state of California still owns it. This particular bill asks, which you already have the ability to do that now, and in fact, the state has already put an RFP out for the first 150 acres of the Chino property. But Chino Valley, in that area where the prisons are, there's approximately anywhere from 2,000 or roughly 2,000 acres that can be used in the future. Some of this cannot be developed by the Department of Corrections because it's in an air flight path of Chino Airport, so you can't build any high-intensity use or prison facilities there at all. So this bill specifically asks the Department of Corrections to make a long-term plan so they can use that whole property, what they want to put on there, so we can determine what the surplus is, and if the surplus is leased out under this new program, that the Department of Corrections will get 50% of those that income, and the state general fund will get 50% of that income for the period of the lease. And this allows a lot of flexibility. I hope this model can be used in other state properties throughout the state once we show it works.
Great, thank you.
Ask for your aye vote.
Do you have witnesses in support of the bill?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any witnesses in opposition?
Not I believe.
Any questions from committee members? We will. Mr. Eng.
Yeah, Mr. Hagman, I've actually toured that facility, and I know that it certainly is going to be a boon to that area. This bill is specific, it's region specific, I understand. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I hope this model can be used.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
In the future.
What would be the reasons why, I'm not advocating it, this is just a neutral question. What would be the reasons why you wouldn't apply it to other areas on this type of leaseback?
Sure. I think the leaseback has been already approved through our last year's budget. So we already have that going out to RFP right now. So this is nothing to change the DGS or the governor's ability to lease out state properties, which is, I think, a great tool for us in the future for long-term revenues for the state. This bill specifically addresses that particular parcel and directs the CDCR to do more than a 5-year plan, which is all they're required to do right now. So in 5 years, they don't have a lot of money. They don't plan to build any facilities, but you don't want to lease out land that they may use 20 years from now or 30 years from now that they may need for a training facility or expand prison bed space or anything like that. So we're asking them to do specifically a 30-year plan on that facility or on that land mass so we can determine what is the surplus property. And so that's the first part. Then secondly, we're given directions, since this is the first parcels being leased out in this long-term lease, we're given directions to finance to split that revenue with the department that puts it up. My theory is unless you bring these departments a carrot, why would they ever say anything surplus? Because they don't want to give it up and then it goes back to general fund. We've seen that for those who've been around. There's not a lot of state agencies coming up and offering up surplus assets. It's kind of like we drag them to it but never offer it. Well, in this case, they would benefit from any of these lease outs. And so hopefully that will encourage more state departments and of our departments, Caltrans, state parks, who knows, to come up and say, hey, we do have this sliver of surplus property. We'd like to lease that out and return the income from that. We'll split it with general fund 50-50 and we'll go on from there. So this is kind of like a model that I'm hoping that we can use statewide. There's no limitations that we can't use in other parcels, but this bill specifically addresses the long-term plan for that parcel.
Thank you, Jan, for the question, and I do hope to follow this up and see its applicability as the project takes root. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will. Yeah, I already said that at the beginning. Mr. Fletcher. Welcome.
Thank you,
We'll
Madam
hear
Chair.
file item number 1, AB 1937.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Over the last several years, and most recently with the H1N1 outbreak, public health officials have supported schools as alternative vaccination sites. Unfortunately, many California schools lack a school nurse on site or don't have a nurses available to handle a district-wide vaccination program should they wish to undertake such an endeavor. In order to supplement the work of school nurses, AB 1937 will provide the option for schools to utilize other health professionals to assist with certain school-based vaccination programs. Specifically, AB 1937 would permit physician assistants, registered nurses, nurse practitioners, and student nurses to administer an immunization for an annual seasonal influenza, influenza pandemic episodes, or other diseases that represent a current or potential outbreak as declared by a local, state, or federal public health official. We've agreed to take the committee's amendments. I believe it's removed all of the opposition, and we have a few witnesses here in support.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Jennifer Snyder on behalf of MedImmune. They're a biotech company that produces FluMist. They work a lot with different school districts that actually can take advantage of free flu vaccine that they get through their local public health department through the CDC. Many of these school districts have been talking to MedImmune about the fact that they just don't have the personnel available to help with flu vaccine clinics. And the school nurses in particular have had discussions about wanting to include more professionals to help them do that. So we've been working with the assemblyman to see if we could expand a few of those and make this a little bit more effective and usable for school districts to get the flu vaccine to children who need it.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Madam Chair and members, Teresa Stark with the California Medical Association. We are pleased to be in support of the bill today. We want to thank the author and the sponsors for working with us to narrow the bill from its introduced version. This is a really important bill, as we saw with the H1N1 pandemic. It's important that we have opportunities to provide access to immunizations in a pandemic situation. This is an important public health bill, and we urge your support today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, Linda Ross representing Kaiser Permanente, also here in support.
Good morning. Kristen Hare, California Academy of Family Physicians, also in support.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, member Stephanie Roberson on behalf of the California Nurses Association. Just want to thank the author for working with the nursing community to narrow the bill and bring the legislation back to its current intent. So we removed our opposition and we are now neutral. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Mr. Fletcher, we are going to establish a quorum, if you will give us a minute.
Hayashi.
Here.
Emerson. Conway. Ng. Hernandez. Hill. Ma. Nava. Nilo. Ruskin. Smythe. Hernandez.
Which amendments are you referring to?
We are taking the amendments that further clarify that the only people this would apply to would be physician assistants, registered nurses, nurse practitioners, and student nurses. Which are already in the bill.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Your bill's been moved, and we have a second by Mr. Smythe. Would you like to close?
Just request an aye vote. I think we've all seen with H1N1, we're concerned about rates of immunization. I think this will better help schools be able to respond and protect kids. Request an aye vote.
Thank you very much.
Motion is due pass. Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson. Emerson, aye. Conway. Ng. Ng, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Ma. Ma, aye. Nava. Nilo. Ruskin. Smythe. Smythe, aye.
7-0, your measure's out. Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion on file item 10, AB 2438. Hagman, thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson. Emerson, aye. Conway. Ng. Ng, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Ma. Ma, aye. Nava. Nilo. Ruskin. Smythe. Smythe, aye.
720, that measures out. Members, we have a consent calendar.
Move consent.
Thank you. We are proposing file items 6, 9, 11, 14. It's consent items. Is there a second? Second. Thank you.
Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson. Emerson, aye. Conway. Ing. Ing, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Ma. Ma, aye. Nava. Nilo. Ruskin. Smythe. Smythe, aye.
Thank you. Also, file item 4 and 5 have been pulled today from today's file. 4 and 5. AB 2185, Mr. Liu. File item 5, AB 2267, Mr. Eng. Mr. Amiano, welcome.
Move the bill. Oh, I'm sorry. Thought I heard that. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. On a more serious note, for the opportunity to present AB 2393. Last year, Mr. Portantino authored AB 48 to provide oversight and regulations to specified private post-secondary institutions. This bill, in the same spirit, is seeking to ensure that prospective students receive an accurate accounting of the number of former graduates who gained employment in the actual jobs for which they were trained. AB 2393 would require that the apprenticeship and nursing programs that their graduates accounted in placement rates must be employed in a position or job with duties that meet the requirements established by the Division of Labor Standards or Board of Registered Nursing. This bill will establish minimum requirements for job placements in nursing and apprenticeship programs, specifically by requiring that a student must maintain employment for a minimum of 60 days within the 6-month period that is already established by current law. This bill is supported by the Consumer Federation of California, the California Nurses Association, the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, and the State Building and Construction Trades Council of California. Here with me today is Ignacio Hernandez with the Consumer Federation of California and Kelly Green with the California Nurses Association, if I may.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. Ignacio Hernandez on behalf of the Consumer Federation of California. Actually, I'm going to defer to our Executive Director.
Good morning. Richard Holliver with the Consumer Federation of California. This is a truth in advertising bill. In recent years, there has been a lot of advertising, high-pressure sales tactics directed towards primarily unemployed young folks desperate to get job skills who sign up for these for-profit proprietary programs. Most of the funding that pays for this is actually student federal loans, and typically a student will leave $20,000, $30,000, or $40,000 in debt. Often they find that when they look for jobs, they are not going to be considered qualified for those jobs, so they're in debt but don't have job skills that lead to gainful employment. So what the bill does is require that if one of these schools is going to advertise or make boasts about its success in placing students, that only addresses their advertising of success rates in placing students in jobs, they have to actually be the job for which the student was trained. And in two areas, apprenticeable occupations and nursing, California has already established definitions of what constitutes those jobs. So what we're trying to do with this bill is make sure that if a school calls someone a nurse, a successful placement, they're doing the work of a nurse. Likewise, a carpenter, they're doing the work of a carpenter. The 60-day standard was in the old statute that sunsetted in 2007. It was in place for decades, and this would reestablish that minimum 60-day test. Current law would allow a placement for as little as 1 hour in any job, including a minimum wage, unskilled job, to actually count as a successful nursing or building trades placement, and we don't want students lured into programs unless they have actual information about the success rates.
Next witness.
Kelly Green with the California Nurses Association in support of the bill. Individuals who embark upon a career as a registered nurse dedicate a significant amount of time and money to their education, and we certainly appreciate this bill because we do believe that it would curb unfair business practices in which students are exposed to inflated placement and employment rates. By shoring up the definition of graduates employed in the field, the bill would basically create a uniform standard by which private post-secondary institutions could market their employment and placement rates to current and prospective students. It also would set a standard for what is really considered gainful employment, which in the current marketplace is becoming increasingly important. And we are aware of cases in which private post-secondary institutions and hospitals are teaming up to provide residency or transition programs for nursing school graduates. And these are grads who go in to work in the hospitals. They provide patient care for minimal to no wages while they're seeking full-time employment. This certainly is not gainful employment, nor should it be considered gainful employment in these schools' placement rates. So for those purposes, we appreciate the proposed definition. As was stated, it's resurrecting previous law, reinstating that, and we believe that it would curb unfair business practices for students. And for those reasons, we support the bill.
Thank you. Next witness.
Madam Chair, members, Cesar Diaz, on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. We have a great apprenticeship system. It's funded by our contractors and employee wages. When an apprentice graduates from that program, they owe nothing, and they're earning while they're learning. So it's a great system, and it does prove to provide the construction workforce that our state needs. If you do see those commercials during the day, they're advertising for they're heavily, and it's very expensive programs, and to not have the standards that our apprenticeship programs have puts us at a competitive disadvantage and siphons away resources from programs that actually do work. So for those reasons, we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? There are witnesses in opposition? Any questions from committee members? Thank you. Is there a second? Oh, Mr. Emerson.
Mr. Amiano, explain to me how this does not eliminate other private post-secondary organizations from having an apprenticeship programs.
I think that the scope is consistent with the previous laws, and so we don't really expand it. Perhaps you could.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what this does is for a program that is not a registered apprenticeship program that would claim to prepare people to be, for example, an electrician or a carpenter, that if they say we have a 90% success rate in placing our graduates, they have to actually do the work of a carpenter or the work of an electrician for them to claim that person as a successful placement. That's really what the bill is about, truth in advertising. If they're only placing 20% successfully, that's what the students entering should know. If it's 90%, it should be based upon the duties of a carpenter or of an electrician.
We had a situation in, I'm sorry, did you? No. We had a situation in San Francisco. Was the Culinary Institute attracted a lot of students with promises of high placements in the restaurant business in San Francisco particularly, and it resulted in litigation finally on the part of the students who went into great debt to get this degree only to find out there were no jobs for them. And so this would help curtail that practice without impinging on the other area.
Great. Mr. Amiano, we'll take that as your close. We have a motion. Is there a second? Thank you. Mr. Ng.
Motion is do pass. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson? No. Emerson, no. Conway? Ng? Aye. Ng, aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Ma? Aye. Ma, aye. Nava? Nilo? Ruskin? Smythe? No. Smythe, no.
5-2. That measures on call. You need one more vote.
Thank you
Mr.
so much.
Amiano. Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, would you like to present your bill? Members, we're going to take up file item 13, AB 2551.
Morning, Madam Chair, members. Thank you for allowing me to present earlier rather than later. This bill seeks to establish a scholarship and loan repayment program for pharmacy technicians. The industry has boomed significantly in the health career Thank you, Madam Chair. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. You have a motion and a second. Please call the roll. Oh, excuse me.
Wait a minute.
Mr. Emerson has a question.
I don't see why just opting out certain groups of people that this, I can see by economics, but you're just exempting certain groups in this bill. I just don't see how this is a constitution, passes a constitutional situation. You're talking about specifically African American students, Native Americans, Hispanic students, and other students from underrepresented groups. How does that pass?
I mean, are you talking about serving in those group areas?
Yeah.
Yeah, not exempting them.
No, I mean just serving those
Serving.
groups. Yeah.
Well, because where's greatest need of health care in the areas that have the highest incidence of chronic diseases and pathology and concerns. So by allowing those individuals to give an incentive to go to those particular areas, we're going to increase the providers to those areas. So.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr. Emerson? No? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any witnesses in support? Opposition? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to appropriations. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson? No. Emerson, no. Conway? Ing? Aye. Ing, aye. Hernandez?
Aye.
Hernandez, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Ma? Ma, aye. Nava? Nilo? Ruskin? Smythe?
5 to 1? 5 to 1. You need one more vote, Mr. Hernandez.
File item number 2, AB 1980. Ms. Hayashi, you may present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Any members, any individuals in opposition? Support? Questions of the committee? Please call the roll.
Motion is due pass. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson? Emerson, aye. Conway? Ing? Ing, aye. Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Ma? Ma, aye. Nava? Nilo? Ruskin? Smythe?
Bill's out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, I'll be presenting AB 2128 for Mr. Gaines. The bill increases the minimum amount of insurance coverage private patrol operator employers must carry, and I have Kelly Jensen with me to testify in support of the bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for bailing out Mr. Gaines here, and thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. As this committee knows, the security guard industry has attempted over the last 4 years to really continue to professionalize the industry. We've sponsored bills to increase training requirements and other requirements to really make California's security guard industry the best in the nation. We have the most aggressive training requirements, work very closely with labor on those, and now have imposed training requirements on proprietary guards. This bill is another step in that direction. It increases the insurance requirement. We found that there was no insurance requirement for a company that does not employ guards with guns. So we wanted to make sure that people that are credentialed and providing protection for both persons and buildings have some adequate level of insurance. So if there are problems, people have recourse to go and go after those companies. So we ask for your aye vote.
Any individuals wishing to testify in support?
Good morning, Madam Chairperson, committee members. My name is Brian Bayer. I own a small contract guard firm in Sacramento, California. I'm a board of director member for the Cal Sega Group. Everything Kelly said is important about the bill. The bill does level the playing field somewhat between guard companies that are operating on a legitimate basis and ones that are not. But the big part it does is it does protect consumers. There are many guard companies out there that we find we go to that have already been damaged, either simple things like lost keys where they have to rekey an entire building, costing the consumer $50,000 to $100,000 at a time, to larger things where people have been damaged or injured. We think it's a good bill. We thank Ted Gaines for putting it forth, and actually Mary for filling in for Ted. Any questions you have?
Yeah. Any individuals or organizations wishing to oppose this measure? Questions by the committee? The bill has been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Motion is do pass. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson?
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Conway? Ing? Ing, aye. Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Ma? Ma, aye. Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Ruskin? Smythe? Smythe, aye.
8-0, that bill is out.
Mr. Berryhill, you're next, but we're going to lift a call on a couple of items. Item number 8, AB 2393, Mr. Amiano. Current vote is 5-2.
Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Ruskin? Measures out.
6-2, that measures out. We're going to lift a call on file item 13, AB 2551, Dr. Hernandez, but current vote is 5-1. Please call the absent members.
Conway? Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Ruskin? Smythe? Smythe, no.
6-2, that measures out. Thank you. Mr. Berryhill. Thank you for waiting. We're going to take up file item 12, AB 2532.
you, Madam Chair and committee members, for your patience. Today I bring before you AB 2532, which is designed to include tractor trailers in California's lemon law. Basically, it's a consumer protection. This bill generated from my constituents who have purchased new tractors and trailers in compliance with ARB's new on-road diesel regulations. These vehicles have been plagued with problem after problem after problem. I have received numerous complaints from constituents who report that their new trucks are in the shop for days or weeks at a time. For a small business owner, that is enough to put them out of business. Some of my constituents came to me asking for some form of relief, and this is the idea that we arrived at, because it is not fair that the consumer should have to pay for all the costs of a manufacturing flaw that is the result of a hastily drafted regulation. This bill is clearly a work in progress. We've got some bugs to work out, but it has been brought to my attention that in its current form it would impact heavy pickups like a Ford F-350. That is clearly not the intent. This is all about the big trucks, the three-axle trucks. It's definitely not my intention and not designed to provide relief. It is designed to provide relief for tractor-trailer owners. I intend to take the appropriate amendments to narrow the focus of what this bill is intended to do in the end.
I'll move the bill.
Thank you.
I'm very hopeful that we can arrive on some sort of solution with manufacturers that provide relief for my truckers and all of our truckers in this state, which may or may not require legislation. Perhaps we can work this thing out before we have to go all the way with this bill. But this bill provides an important vehicle for those discussions. I'm committed to working with all stakeholders to arrive on a solution that works. So today I ask for your aye vote so that these important discussions can continue. I have with me today John Teresi of Teresi Trucking and Tom Vance to discuss the problems that they have experienced with their trucks.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Tom Vance. I have one truck, just a single owner operator. Bought it at the end of '08, took delivery basically the last week of December. Put it on the road January of 2009. Shortly after putting it on the road, I started having different problems with the motor. It was bought, to comply with Air Resource Board, everything. Took it in. It had DPF problems, which is a system that they put on for cleaning the air and collecting the soot and everything. And it started out that way. I ended up with about 36 days in and out of the shop, total of downtime with the truck sitting there. Sometimes it was there 2 days, sometimes 4 days. Various problems with the motor. There were some minor problems with the tractor, cab, and everything itself, but the main thing was the motor. Payments on it's pretty expensive. Cost me $2,135 a month. With 36 days down with a tractor, it hits pretty hard, especially when it's your livelihood, it's what you're making your living with.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Next witness in support.
My name is John Teresi. I'm with Teresi Trucking Company. We're a California carrier. We have a terminal in Lodi and one in Fontana, California. And we do work for a lot of different companies. Our biggest customer is the United States government. We do a lot of low bed work with heavy equipment for the government, and we haul stuff for them across country. So my idea is to be up to par with equipment every year. We buy new trucks every year. We try to turn them over 5 years, so that way we have new equipment to perform a service. And we're having problems. And give you an example, back in '04, we were buying trucks for $102,000, $103,000 for a power unit. Today, the same power unit is $122,000. We just bought 5 new ones a while back. And I got a letter here I'd like to pass out. That way, maybe give you a little history. Sure, John, go ahead and hand it. So, I got those copies about it.
Pass it around.
Madam Chair?
Good.
For Mr. Teresi?
Yeah.
Your truck's red and white?
Pardon me?
Your trucks are red and white, aren't they?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, you got nice trucks.
Thank you, sir. I've been in the trucking business all my life. That's all I've ever done.
Because I used to work at Kaiser Steel, and you guys would come in and haul steel out of there.
We haul a lot of high-rise. Yeah, that's
Oh,
part
yeah.
of our business, too. Thank you. Yeah, we do a lot of high-rise. San Francisco, all over America, Portland, and all over. Anyhow, all I got to sell is service. So I try to maintain my fleet. Every year, we have about 40 power units. Every year, we get 10 new ones, get rid of 10 of the old ones. Well, we're having a problem with the 2003 trucks. They're going to be worthless another year in California, but we can't afford to sell them because, number one, nobody wants to buy them in California, and number two, we sell them, we can't keep the new ones running. We've got to keep the old ones to keep the new ones running. That's about the size of it. And I got one in there especially. It's been in the shop 13 times inside of a year and a half. The shortest period has been 3 to 4 days, and the longest period was 3 weeks, almost a month. They even put a new motor in it. They changed everything else. They felt maybe they had the wrong compression ratio on the pistons, so they put a new motor in it. Well, it made it all the way to L.A. It didn't smoke at all. Come out of San Diego, start puffing smoke again. And when these new ones smoke, they smoke 3 times worse than the old ones because it's all sud. What it is, they're trying to clean the air up, and everybody's trying to beat the other guy to the marketplace, okay? That's telling the whole story. So if everything is putting it out there, it's corrected. It's not corrected. We're the guinea pigs. It's breaking us. After 100,000 miles, there ain't no more warranty. Unless you buy a warranty for about $9,000, which they used to give you for nothing years ago. Now it's got a price on it. I don't mind paying for clean air if I'm getting clean air. But I can't afford to be in a shop. This kind of, they'll bankrupt you. They're bankrupting a lot of individuals. The technology, they're trying awful hard. They're doing a good job, but it's not, what works on a stand doesn't work on a highway.
Great. Thank you very much for your testimony. Any other witnesses in support?
Julie Sauls, California Trucking Association, in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any witnesses in opposition? Questions from committee members? Yes, Ms. Ma.
I'm going to stay off your bill at this moment because I'm hearing some opposition, and I think folks are still looking at perhaps unintended consequences of your bill, so I'm going to stay off at this moment. But thank you.
Mike Flanagan on behalf of General Motors, not in opposition. We want to thank the author for more narrowing, defining and the application of the bill. Thank him very much for that effort.
Madam Chair, members, Eloy Garcia for Daimler, manufacturers of Freightliners and other large trucks like Mercedes-Benz. We did meet with Mr. Berryhill yesterday afternoon and did express our concern about our concern is really with the use of lemon law as the remedy for the concern that's been pointed out here. We absolutely get the issue from the trucker's perspective as direct holders of the direct requirements from the Air Board. We understand there are concerns. We understand that the Air Board sometimes has aggressive timelines, aggressive implementation schedules, and sometimes these things happen, unfortunately. It's unfortunate all around. Our concern really is with the remedy that you've chosen, at least in this version of the bill. We think expansion of the lemon law to apply to big rigs to address the concern with the Air Board's rules is a bit of a blunt instrument, really, to try to address what we have here. I'm not sure that it will put the rigs on the roads any sooner. Lemon law is not meant to be a quick remedy. It's a prolonged remedy. So we do want to work with Mr. Berryhill and with with your constituents on finding what the right approach is to address this issue, which is really driven by the Air Board's rules and again the aggressive timelines that just sometimes things happen. Again, we appreciate your willingness to work with us, and we appreciate the time of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. You're not opposed. You're just concerned.
We are concerned, and we do apologize for coming in late. We have not. We met with Mr. Berryhill yesterday afternoon. Have not registered any opposition, so it would be. We would not do that here today.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second.
I never thought me and Ralph Nader would be so close.
Second. Great. Mr. Berryhill, would you like to close?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Eng has a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I just had one quick question to clarify. So if, because of clean air requirements, a used vehicle is retrofitted with a new engine, does your bill apply, or does it only apply to new vehicles that are new?
To new vehicles.
That be new in its entirety?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to close?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I could just...
Oh,
make
I'm sorry,
That's
Mr.
all right,
Hill.
thank you.
It's getting rolling.
Yeah, I know. But, I think this is a great idea. And maybe at the end of the day, and I know Mr. Berryhill has made the comments that there may not be a bill necessary, may be able to solve the problems, but there certainly is a problem. And as someone who sat on the Air Resources Board, knowing the timeline, knowing the pressure placed on the development and innovation of new products, and trying to decide how those will be implemented and added on and fit together in that tractor trailer is I think a challenge. So I think you're paying the price today for that. So I think this is a great opportunity to work together with all of the stakeholders. Right. And at the end of the day, hopefully you won't need this, and there'll be an opportunity to have a product and something that you can depend on and rely on. So I'll support the bill today.
Thanks, Jay.
I can't let you close just yet. Mr. Neelo has a question.
I apologize. This is one proposal that I wanted to be here during the presentation of it. I'm sorry I had to present a bill. But the proposal gives me a great deal of trouble, and it's an issue with which I have a great deal of familiarity. And the problem that we're dealing with isn't with a manufacturer who has brought products to the market too quickly in order to try to take advantage prematurely of a marketing opportunity. It is a situation of manufacturers being forced to bring a product to market before it's fully ready because of regulatory impositions. We have a problem. Evidently, I had not been familiar with it being as pervasive as it is, but we have a problem, and the bill seeks a target to solve that problem, but unfortunately we've grabbed the wrong target. I would suggest that perhaps rather than the manufacturers being held responsible for the costs of essentially debugging in the field, perhaps it ought to be the Air Resources Board. And that's the fundamental concern I have. I recognize Mr. Smythe gave me a quick rundown of what you've discussed, and you're going to try to...
Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. He said it's a Berryhill bill, vote no.
See what I got to put up with?
My usual criteria.
I understand that you're going to try to narrow it, and I'll support the bill on that basis, but it gives me a great deal of trouble for the reasons that I articulated.
Well, I appreciate that, Assemblymember Neelo. It does come to a little bit of a chicken and egg kind of a scenario, you know, and we're just trying to, and we will absolutely are committed to working with the industry to try to make something of this bill that really works for everybody. These guys, in the meantime, are going out of business, and they're going to be going out of business right and left, so we're just trying to find some relief. And so we're going to continue to work with them, and I can commit to that.
I'd like to add a little bit to this. You know, we're an agriculture state, and we move a lot. I'm not in the ag business anymore. I used to be. I'm in the freight business. But we move a lot of ag products in a short period of time. There's so many owner-operators that are going broke. The owner-operator probably move 60, 70% of the agricultural products in the state. And I don't think the government knows until it happens how bad this thing is. These trucks, they're junk. There's nothing wrong with their junk. All at once, the law says they're junk, okay? You can't sell them in California unless you cut them up for scrap. I know the government is trying to help financially, but there ain't the money available. So we're between a rock and a hard spot, okay?
So with that said...
This ag is going to get hurt before the year's over with.
Appreciate that.
All at once we're going to panic.
We understand.
That the whole economy is going to hell, the handbasket, okay?
We understand. Thank you. Would you like to close, Mr.
Yeah. Well, as you all heard, I mean, we're just trying to find a solution here. We're working with the manufacturers and try to keep these guys in business that provide such a valuable service for all of us Californians. So with that, I respectfully ask all of you for an aye vote on this, and let's keep it moving.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Motion is to pass. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson? Emerson, aye. Conway? Ing? Ing, aye. Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Ma? Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Nilo, aye. Ruskin? Smythe? Smythe, aye.
8-0, your measure's out.
Thank you all very much.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Ms. Buchanan, thank you for waiting. We're going to take a file item 7AB 2390.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I think as all of you know, in California, contractors have to have a valid license and also workers' compensation insurance. Also, all of you know that we're doing public works projects, that the agency puts a project out to bid and takes the low bidder, period. And I can tell you from my school board days when we did about $1 billion worth of projects during the time I was on the board, there are times when you've got a project that's a $20 million project and the bidder might be the low bidder by $10,000 or $20,000, and you may actually want to take the second bid because you've done work with them and you know that the projects come in on time, under budget, with very few change orders, but you have to take the low bidder. So we have a situation today where, with respect to public works projects, you don't have to show proof that you have a license or workers' comp until after the bid has been awarded. So we're having a situation today where, because of the economy and the impact on the construction industry and the high unemployment we're experiencing, that everyone is hungry for all the work that's out there. And we're having bids awarded to contractors who have, lowballed the project, who are scrambling to get their workers' compensation insurance from the time that the bid was awarded to the time the bid's signed. And the impact of that on public agencies and on the labor force in general is twofold. First, from the public agency point of view, if someone hasn't put in a bid that's well thought out and truly reflects the cost of the projects, they come in with change orders, so you end up paying more in change orders than you should, and oftentimes end up paying more than if you had selected the bidder who was second or third. And then from thank you. So what this bill does, I'll bring it to a close as fast as I can, is this just requires that at the time a contractor submits a bid, that contractor can show proof of a valid license and workers' compensation insurance, because we feel this will weed out those contractors that are really not acting in good faith at the time they submit their bid.
Witnesses in support.
Good morning, members. Patrick Eng on behalf of the California State Council of Labor. Every month, the laborers host an enforcement breakfast down in the basement of the Capitol. Many of you have attended that breakfast, and we've appreciated your coming. This idea for this legislation came out of those meetings with the desire to get more information sooner about contractors that are bidding on public works. Currently, a contractor is required to possess valid workers' comp insurance at the time they receive their contractor's license. Unfortunately, as time passes, oftentimes the workers' comp coverage also lapses. Regrettably, these cases are only discovered after an accident has occurred or an enforcement action has taken place after a job has started, oftentimes ending up costing the public billions of dollars. In fact, the Department of Insurance estimates there are over $11.5 billion in workers' comp fraud annually. This bill simply is requiring, in addition to the contractor's name, business location, the contractor provide current license number as well as current workers' comp number at the time of bid. This is information that is already available to the public and does not place an additional burden on these contractors, we feel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Madam Chair, members, Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. We believe contractors bidding on public works should be the most responsible contractors as they're building our state schools and infrastructure. For that reason, we strongly support this bill and urge your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the California Labor Federation. I want to apologize for not getting our letter in time, but we are in support. Appreciate it, and I vote.
Thank you. Next witness.
Madam Chair, members, Doug Kim with the applicants' attorneys. We also sent in a late letter of support. The construction industry, unfortunately, is one where premium fraud is highly prevalent, particularly in the roofing industry. We think this is a good step in reducing premium fraud in that industry.
Madam Chair, Dave Ackerman, representing the Associated General Contractors. We do not have a support position on the bill. We're in support of the concept and what the author is attempting to do with the bill. We've had discussions with the author and the sponsors. We have a logistical issue with the bill. Requiring a workers' comp evidence of coverage at the time of bid is somewhat problematic, because the Contractors License Board has informed me that while workers' comp coverage is required to be licensed by the Contractors License Board, the status of that policy is problematic at the time of bid. If you were submitting a bid to a public agency, you go onto the Contractors License Board website, you click on to the contractor submitting a bid, their name comes up, right under their name has their worker comp policy, and you can click on that and it tells you whether it's current or not. The issue is that currency is probably has a 30-day time lapse on it, because the comp carrier is required to report to the license board whether the policy is in force. But at the time a contractor is submitting his bid, I think I've testified to this committee before, I'm happy to invite all of you to a bid room at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon when bids come in at 10 minutes to 2. If you have a 30-day time lag with verifying comp insurance, it's virtually impossible for a contractor to know that a number that a sub is putting on their worker comp policy is actually valid and current. So we've talked to the author about the issue. You've got to have workers' comp coverage when you're doing construction, no question about it. Any general contractor in their right mind is going to verify and make sure that their subs have comp coverage just to protect themselves. But I think we want to sit down with the author and the sponsors to logistically make this work, because we don't think the current bill works for the general at time of bid.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Can I ask the witness a question?
Of course.
I'm confused, Mr. Ackerman, because the whole premise of the bill is to require evidence of workers' comp coverage at the time of the bid. And you're saying that the logistics of that are probably impossible, and yet you don't oppose the bill. I'm confused.
Well, we feel it's improper to have comp coverage when you're performing work on a public works project. Having that at the time of bid,
I just want to clarify. At the time of work, yes. I mean, nobody questions that. This bill requires it at the time of bid, and so I'm just confused.
Well, we've expressed to both the sponsors and the author that approach to the bill doesn't work, and we'd like to work on a solution that does work. But I think the current process in the bill just logistically doesn't work.
And if I may, the requirement of the license is that you have workers' comp insurance, much like if you have a driver's license and you drive a car, you're required to have car insurance. You have to have it. It's not whether you have it at the time or at any given time, it's that you have to have it. And so I would just say that you have to have current workers' comp coverage while you have a contractor's license, the same way you have to have current auto coverage when you have a driver's license.
And Mr. Nilo, just further on your question, there's a section in the Labor Code that this bill is amending the Public Contract Code, but the section in the Labor Code that requires each contractor that is going to perform work on a public works contract shall sign and file with the awarding body, being the public agency, a certification prior to performing work that they in fact do have worker comp coverage in force. So we'd like to discuss with the author how that process, maybe this bill can apply and strengthen in the enforcement method with that process to make sure that they in fact really do have coverage in force at the time they're performing work, not just before they're going to perform the work. So, but we just think there's a logistics issue with the bill.
Madam Chair, Mr. Ackerman and I met this morning, and I believe we can sit down and resolve the issues, because I think all of us share the goal of having good, responsive contractors bid on projects so that we avoid the pitfalls of those who are not.
All right, great, because you're still testifying under support.
I said we had not registered a position yet on the bill, but we had some concerns.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition to the bill? Any more questions from committee members? We do have a motion and a second. Would you like to close?
Yes, I would just respectfully ask for your aye vote, and as the bill goes forward, we plan to work to resolve these issues.
Thank you very much.
Motion is due pass to appropriations. Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson. Conway. Ing. Ing, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Ma. Ma, aye. Nava. Nava, aye. Nilo. Nilo, no. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye. Smythe. Smythe, no.
7-2, your measure's out.
Thank
you very much. We don't have any bills on call. So members wishing to add on, please do so. We'll leave the roll open for next 5 more minutes.